So just when you think we were all done for the week with all this Xbox price increase, Game Pass stuff, more and more stuff continued to break throughout the day yesterday on Friday. So much so that I feel the need to do a video around this, because by the time we come back on Monday for Newswave, things could have changed all over again. We could just have a bunch of other stuff to where it won't even, all this won't even fit into one video at that point. So I wanted to go over this here today because, man, the situation right now for Xbox and Game Pass is getting ugly, to the point where I see some questioning how much longer Microsoft is even going to stick around with Xbox. That's really where it's gotten to now, but we're going to look at all of that here today. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. So first, let's go over here. This is on Pure Xbox, and it seems like they noticed that the discounts that you typically get with Game Pass. So if you're a Game Pass Ultimate subscriber, say, if I'm playing a game and I wanted to buy it, especially with DLC, there is typically a percentage discount. And I notice it all the time. And I have to double check it when there are sales going on, because there's a chance that, hey, I may see the sale, but someone who isn't a Game Pass Ultimate subscriber would see it. So it makes it a little more difficult when it comes to browsing the store and then finding good deals, because not everyone necessarily has access to those same discounts, right? Well, it appears that Microsoft has actually turned off these different discounts. They're seeing certain bundles with 10% off still, such as the premium upgrade to South Midnight Indiana Jones. But most DLC for Game Pass titles is now showing up at full price, such as the individual Order of Giants expansion for indie. Now, they say it's worth noting that the full game discount of 20% off for Xbox Game Pass Ultimate titles is still up and running in most instances, but this is something that just kind of out of nowhere and quietly, to the point where I almost wondered if it was an error of some kind. However, it's still like that. So this once again seems to be that reshuffling of tiers where Microsoft has changed quite a bit behind the scenes, and they've worked it into these different tiers. And even like the PC Game Pass thing, they weren't necessarily up front of going from $12 to $16.50 or whatever. That was something we had to kind of find out on our own. And this seems to be another thing, because it's not exactly something you show up and you're like, hey, get excited, less discounts. So with that, there's also something going on when it comes to Sam's Club, and I wanted to put this out there to see if anyone else out there who frequents Sam's Club is seeing this, because this was something that was posted over on X from Video Game Deals, showing a couple of screenshots that apparently came from a private Facebook group where Xbox consoles are clearance sale at Sam's Club. Some of these discounts are quite steep. Like, we're seeing the Xbox Series S console at $240. And I have to just put this out there to see if anyone else who is either might be working at Sam's Club or goes to Sam's Club often or has access to one, is this a thing? Like, are you seeing this in stores where just, I guess, inventory that's there is just being cycled out through these clearance sales? Because we had that story around Costco, who decided to back away from apparently Xbox consoles, not only on their website, but also in store. We have official word from Costco as it being a business decision. Is it something that Sam's Club is also getting on board with, and they're clearing out, shelf space for, it sounds bad, but something that'll sell, is typically why this would be happening. So we have that going on. But the big thing that really caught people's attention, we have a different tier for Game Pass and some numbers. So this came up, all right, and this was getting passed around on X. Lena Khan, who was like rolling with FTC against Microsoft, we know is a big and well recorded court battle that was going on, and Microsoft ended up coming out on top, and they were able to acquire Activision Blizzard. We ended up seeing a lot of behind the scenes stuff with that, because some cases, whoever was submitting documents did not redact stuff correctly, or they didn't upload to the right place, and we found out about roadmaps from Microsoft with upcoming systems that I guess didn't turn out because we haven't seen some of these yet. But nonetheless, of course, Lena Khan comes back here and does kind of an I told you so, saying that Microsoft's acquisition of Activision has been followed by significant price hikes and layoffs, harming both gamers and developers. As we've seen across sectors, increasing market consolidation and increasing prices often go hand in hand. They were quote tweeting another person here who broke out the charts. It's always going to be good when you see the line charts, really just kind of showing off what's happened with Microsoft and Xbox after the acquisition of Activision Blizzard. And as we know, prices haven't been going down. All right. But I will say, I saw this and I said, hold on. We see what's going on in the gaming industry now, just as a whole. Prices are going up across the board. Even with other subscription services, like Sony's raised their subscription service, and they didn't acquire Activision Blizzard. And of course, Microsoft's big push into AI has it to the point where they are adjusting the entire company so they can try to keep up with all these other competitors, other really big companies. You have, obviously, OpenAI. You have what we see with xAI, Amazon, Facebook. I mean, these are very, very wealthy companies that are all just throwing a ton of money into the AI pool. And Microsoft wants to be part of that, to the point, as I mentioned, they're looking to shift everything internally. And yes, that will include Xbox. Well, then we get news breaking. And this is where you go, well, yeah, that probably would be because of Activision Blizzard then. Coming out of Bloomberg with their own sourcing, saying that Xbox gave up more than $300 million in sales of Call of Duty on console and PCs last year with Black Ops 6, according to one of the former employees who asked not to be identified discussing internal estimates. So then we come down here to a quote that they had, where Microsoft Chief Financial Officer Amy Hood has asked Xbox to find other ways to increase profit, according to the current and former employees. So we have Call of Duty going on Xbox Game Pass, even Game Pass Ultimate last year, $20 tier, and you were able to just download it and play it from there, right? So you weren't going to necessarily buy it at $70, but the idea from Microsoft most likely was this is going to be the catalyst that is going to really push Game Pass. Having Call of Duty, this really popular game, especially in like the US, it's going to have a bunch of people signing up to play it. And I mean, I'm sure they had a boost. We all figured they did. But clearly, as we see now, it wasn't enough because the price had to go up because they have Call of Duty in there and they lost out on $300 million in sales. All right. And we know that the vast majority of sales for Call of Duty was coming from PlayStation. And even on PC, we see apparently a dip in sales because, yes, it was on Game Pass. So if you're someone who's enjoying Call of Duty, as we saw with Microsoft and even leaving it out of that premium, remember they have like the Essential, the Premium, and then the Ultimate, even leaving Call of Duty out of the Premium for going in no later than a year after release. They made sure with the little star next to it in the fine print that Call of Duty was not part of that. And now it's starting to, yes, make sense to have these kind of numbers. Call of Duty is an extremely expensive game to make. We know this because we do have some numbers from the FTC stuff. And it turns out that Cold War from 2020, that cost $700 million to make, is the reported amount coming out of some of the filings. So we're 5 years removed from that. And now think about how prices have gone up since 2020. We joke about how if you bought a console then, you've made out so far. I mean, think about it. You have an item that is now worth more than when you bought it when it first came out. Typically, it's the other way around. Depreciation and just pricing going down go back to the PS4 and the Xbox One or what have you, you figure the thing will just be worth less. No, it's worth more now. So then you think about budgets around games and how those have ballooned. 2020, we're talking about a $700 million budget for Cold War. How much did Black Ops 6 cost to develop? Because I'm genuinely wondering if they are up against, and it sounds crazy, but the $1 billion mark to develop a Call of Duty. Now, Call of Duty Black Ops 7 looks a bit more iterative, so maybe it wasn't a massive jump from Black Ops 6, but if that was already bordering on some crazy, we'll say $900 million plus budget, it's still not cheap to make the thing. So when you see that and then you go, okay, yeah, the Activision Blizzard deal probably was a major factor then, yes, with how much money's getting thrown around for prices to go up for Game Pass. And it does make you wonder, if you're Microsoft, how do you make that money back even after raising the price to $30 per month for the Ultimate tier? Because if they are having mass cancellations or even downgrades of the people who are there, they're then bringing in, you figure, less money unless the math worked out to where raising it 50%, but then they still retain enough people to make some extra money. I mean, it doesn't feel like it's going to be like that much, like enough to where this all still makes sense for Call of Duty to go into Game Pass, right? So then we start to hear, this is a report coming out of The Verge and Tom Warren right here. Microsoft's getting ready to announce an ad-supported version of Xbox Cloud Gaming. And this is sources familiar with Microsoft's plans, and a lot of this seems to be internally, they're testing this right now. So they're allowing employees to play select titles free without a Game Pass subscription. And the idea being, hey, we're going to really try to get people on board and into this ecosystem by making it so that you don't need a console and you don't even really need to pay us money. Now, everything costs something. So, as they mention here, ad support, or at least the ad-supported version of Xbox Cloud Gaming. You'll have the ability to play some of the games you own, as well as these free play days titles where, like, over the weekend, they may pick out a couple of games, could be a multiplayer title even, and it goes, why don't you try this game out? It's just free to download and play. That was always the frustrating thing, because sometimes you go to download one of these games and it's 70 gigabytes. And you go, I'm really going to spend X amount of time downloading it, only to play it for maybe a few hours as I'm able to over the weekend to try out. But if it is part of this cloud streaming and you hit a button and go, that is much more appealing, okay, than sitting there waiting for things to download. All right. But they mention the time period for this, as in the time limit. So ad support isn't new, which we'll talk about a service that has that now. But basically, you start up a game, you have an hour to play the game before, I guess, you have to log out and log back in or get a new session. 2 minutes of ads will play beforehand. So think about, you're on YouTube or wherever else, even at this time, paid services, you have to still watch ads. They have ad-supported ones that are cheaper, and that's crazy because you still have to pay for it. Although, I mean, how long people have been paying for cable, and you have how many, you find out that half-hour show you watch is really 21 minutes long because there's 8 minutes of commercials, right, throughout that 30-minute time period. So it's not necessarily new for us to have to watch commercials. It's just kind of the way it's been for forever now. But when you mix it in with games, it becomes a little harder, I think, to integrate it well, because you're more engaged with a game, I'd say, than even episodes of shows or a movie. Those have obvious breakup points where at the end of a show and you start a new episode, there's that moment of, we can drop an ad here before you start the night. It's not like, the big climactic scene's happening and there's an advertisement. But in a game that takes 10 to 15 hours to play, there are going to be several of those climactic moments and twists and things that happen, you assume, where an ad, yes, could become intrusive. Now, with this, they say it's up to 5 hours free per month. That sounds insane, and I have to imagine right now that's just for testing. And I just want you guys to test this out as you have time internally at Microsoft and give us some feedback. We'll see how we can handle all this traffic. And I would have to imagine that when they do go like public with this, as this appears to be a tier that they're lining up for an announcement, that it would be more like GeForce Now. GeForce Now has a free tier. So, hey, if you didn't know that, yes, you can load up GeForce Now and you can play different games, maybe that you own, say, on Steam, right then and there. So if you're traveling or something, don't forget, it is available. But they do have some limitations, as you'd expect. 1 hour sessions for gaming. And what happens is when you reach that hour, you basically have to get back in line and wait in a queue to then be able to use a server or whatever they have there for you to be playing these games on. And yes, it's a way for them to put more ads in front of you as you wait. But they do say it's about a 2-minute wait, which, hey, perfect timing for some ads, right? However, it is free and you're going to pay somehow. And here it's just exposure to ads. Now, they do also offer 1080p resolution, 60 FPS, but to my understanding, there's no limits for hours. Here, though, they have them obviously marked 100 hours, 100 hours. That's for the ultimate performance. That's per month. So every month, 100 hours. Apparently, you can roll over up to 15 hours to the next month for performance ultimate. When you run through that 100 hours, you then revert back down to free, or you can buy day passes. They have all kinds of options here if you want. You can you want to throw $4 for performance with no ads for the day, you're good to go. You can do that. So it seems like there is no hourly limit, I guess, on free, but let me know down in the comments if you did somehow exhaust the free-to-play option for GeForce Now and how many hours it was, because it has no marking here of, say, 100 or 200 hours or something like these two do. So I would have to imagine that Microsoft is going to adopt a similar strategy with the free tier that's ad-supported. The thing with this, though, is they've done this all out of order. They just reinvented the Game Pass tiers to the three new ones that they've changed names multiple times at this point, and that's why it feels like they keep getting new people steering the ship randomly, and it just feels so discombobulated at Microsoft when it comes to Xbox. So now here comes this other tier, ad support. I said it's a good idea to have a free tier that most likely, yes, would be held up with ads, but 5 hours, that doesn't make a lot of sense, and I do still question how they would make it work without annoying the person with the stuff. And then how does this function with online games? So let's say you buy a game like Call of Duty. You don't have a console with you or at all even, but you have a controller for some reason. You have a controller you can sync up and play. How does that work for like Xbox Live, like playing online? Because there's supposed to be an option or a tier to do that. If the person buys Call of Duty and they can't play online, it seems weird that they would then feel the need, well, I guess I got to sign up for the $10 tier. The whole point was I buy the game and I can then use Microsoft servers to stream the game for free. And yes, I'll watch some ads. So do those people also get access to online play for that hour? Because now I'm picturing the person who's in the lobby, the one person with all their friends who have Game Pass Ultimate or, like the Xbox Live stuff, and they bought Call of Duty. And they have to drop out after an hour and say, hold on, guys, I got to leave and come back. I got to watch a bunch of Mountain Dew ads or something. Or what happens if you're in the game, you hit your hour limit? Does it cut you off and drop you out of the game, or does it wait for the game to end? This just seems like they are once again lining up with what we've already had with Prime Video or Netflix or Hulu, or game streaming and video streaming just are not comparable like so many analysts and stuff seem to think it is. It's very passive for video streaming versus game streaming. And because of that, there's just going to be a wider market for video streaming because you don't have to have a controller to do that. You need a remote. And in some cases, these TVs now are like voice controlled and stuff. And you just say, launch Netflix. So you don't have to touch the remote. So it's that barrier of entry will always be a controller. It'll always be there. But you'll also have barrier of entry of it's just annoying and people don't necessarily want to be bombarded with ads even every hour while they're playing with their friends. So they'd have to get a bit more creative with how they would do this, but certainly 5 hours per month isn't going to do it. And I have to imagine that is just a limit that's been imposed right now for testing. If they come to market with that, there's no point in coming to market at all. And of course, this is going to lead to thoughts around the idea of, will Microsoft figure out ways after, say, refining the ad delivery setup in their free tier, will this lead to them trying to get advertisements into their paid tiers, or even figure out ways to work ads into the games themselves? And this has been a long-running concern, but now more than ever, Microsoft is under scrutiny. I mean, the microscope is really on them with Game Pass and its current price point, and it feels like they're doing whatever they can to extract tons and tons of money, or as much money as possible, out of the gaming sector after this kind of a jump of 50% to $30. It seems like nothing's off the table for them, and just hearing about ads in some sort of tier is going to lead to ideas around it expanding further up the chain. Again, they announced it in the wrong order. If they had announced that there would be an ad-supported free version of Game Pass, while Game Pass Ultimate, say, still $20, and they weren't going through all this stuff now where seems like they're on their back foot completely, I think people would see it and be like, okay, well, I have Game Pass Ultimate. Whatever. I'm just going to stick with the $20 per month thing. But now people are downgrading. They're thinking hard about the idea of even having Game Pass, right? Because the price is so high. And then they see this come in. They're already annoyed at Microsoft. Now they see an option that's ad supported. So they're going to be annoyed at that too. All right. That's the thing. If it had already been announced before, I don't know if the focus would have been so much on this free tier with ads as it is now. Okay. So weird decisions by almost like they're just constantly surprised. Like Xbox has been here for a while. We all realize they're going to celebrate their 25th anniversary next year for the Xbox brand since 2001. But it feels like they're constantly surprised by the market that they've been here for more than 2 decades serving. So I don't really understand it sometimes when it comes to the direction that Microsoft is going in, some of the decisions they make. And you know what? Doesn't seem like I'm alone, because not only are people, say, on social media and stuff, like confused at a lot of this, people who have been following even Windows for longer than that are just like, who knows what's going on at Microsoft? Now, I don't know if that's a good thing when they control, billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of intellectual properties and franchises. They have Call of Duty, and it just feels like they don't necessarily know what they're doing, and that just seems really weird. But let me know what you guys think about all of this down below, because wow, the Game Pass situation, it keeps going and it's just getting ugly. So who knows what next week is going to hold, unless maybe they want to announce this ad-supported free streaming tier, and I'm sure that'll go over well. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.